The sky above the alien city burned red and black as fire fell from orbit. Large towers made of silver stone and glowing glass collapsed one by one. Smoke covered the streets, and the sound of explosions never stopped. This planet was not Earth. It was called Virlia, the capital world of a powerful alien empire. And today, it had become a battlefield. Human forces had been sent here as allies, but everyone knew the truth. Humans were not equals. They were hired soldiers, placed on the front lines where losses were expected. Most alien commanders did not even bother to learn human names. Among the human troops was a young soldier named Ethan Hale. Ethan moved through the broken streets with his rifle held tight. His armor was scratched and burned. His breathing was heavy, but his eyes stayed sharp. Around him, other human soldiers followed orders, retreating step by step as enemy fire pushed closer. The mission had failed. Rebel forces had broken through the city defenses faster than anyone expected. The Palace District was already lost. Alien units had pulled back, leaving humans to cover the retreat. Fall back now, the human commander shouted through the comms. Ethan turned and ran with the others. The ground shook under his boots. A blast hit nearby, throwing debris into the air. He barely avoided falling. As they moved deeper into the ruins, something strange happened. Ethan heard a sound that did not belong on a battlefield. A cry. It was small, weak, not human. He slowed down, looking around. The others kept running, focused on survival. The sound came again, sharper this time, filled with fear. Ethan's heart beat faster. "No," he whispered. "Not here." He checked his scanner quickly. No clear signals. Just broken walls and fire. "Ethan, move," a soldier shouted behind him. Ethan hesitated. Every rule, every order said the same thing: do not stop. Civilians were not the mission. Survival came first, but the cry came again. Ethan turned away from the retreat path and ran toward the sound. He slipped into a broken side corridor near what looked like a collapsed palace wing. The walls were cracked, glowing symbols flickering and dying. Smoke filled the air. The cry was closer now. Ethan followed it through rubble until he saw a small shape trapped beneath fallen stone. It was a child, not human. She was small, maybe the size of a human 5-year-old. Her skin shimmered with soft blue light, and delicate markings glowed faintly across her arms. One of her legs was pinned under debris. Her eyes were large, filled with terror and pain. She looked at Ethan and froze. For a moment, neither moved. Then another explosion hit nearby and the ceiling cracked. Ethan rushed forward without thinking. He dropped his rifle and used his armored hands to lift the stone. The weight strained his muscles, but he pushed harder until the debris shifted enough to free her leg. She cried out, then went quiet, shaking. "It's okay," Ethan said softly, though he knew she could not understand his words. "I've got you." He quickly checked her injury. The leg was bruised, maybe broken, but not crushed. She was alive. That was what mattered. Enemy fire echoed outside. Ethan picked her up carefully. She was lighter than he expected. Her body was warm, trembling. As he turned to leave, his comm unit crackled. "Hale, where are you?" the commander demanded. "We're pulling out now." "I found a civilian," Ethan replied. There was a pause. "Leave her," the voice said coldly. "We can't stop." Ethan clenched his jaw. "I can't," he said. "That's an order." Ethan looked down at the alien child clinging weakly to his armor. Her small hand gripped his chest plate, glowing faintly. "I'm sorry," he said, and shut off the comm. He ran. Outside, the city was worse. Rebel drones flew overhead. Plasma fire cut across the streets. Ethan moved fast, keeping to cover, shielding the child with his own body. A blast hit close enough to knock him off his feet. He rolled, holding the girl tight, pain flashing through his side. Warning lights filled his visor, but he forced himself up. The child looked at him, her glowing eyes wide. She touched his helmet gently, as if trying to understand him. "It's okay," Ethan said again, breathing hard. "I won't drop you." He used his last smoke grenades to hide his movement. Step by step, he pushed forward, following old maps in his head, hoping to reach a defensive line. Then a group of rebels appeared ahead. Ethan stopped. They were tall, armored, weapons raised. There was no way past them. He turned to run back, but more rebels closed in behind him. Trapped. Ethan placed the child down behind a broken wall and stood in front of her, raising his rifle. His ammo was low. He fired anyway. The first rebel fell, then another. Plasma fire burned his shoulder. Pain screamed through his body, but he stayed standing. The child cried out behind him. Ethan moved without thinking, stepping into fire meant for her, taking hits that cracked his armor. Just as his rifle clicked empty, the rebels suddenly stopped. They lowered their weapons. Ethan blinked, confused. Alien royal guards appeared from the smoke, elite soldiers in golden armor moving fast and silent. In seconds, the rebels were disarmed or dead. Ethan fell to one knee, exhausted. One of the guards rushed past him, kneeling before the child. "My princess," the guard said, voice shaking. Ethan froze. "Princess." The child looked at the guard, then back at Ethan. She reached out and grabbed his hand tightly, refusing to let go. More guards arrived, surrounding them. Ethan expected to be shot. Instead, all weapons lowered. A tall figure approached from the smoke. She was powerful, regal, her presence heavy enough to silence the battlefield. Her armor was dark and elegant, her eyes glowing with ancient strength. The alien queen. She saw her daughter and stopped breathing. She crossed the distance in seconds and knelt, lifting the child into her arms. The princess clung to her mother, then pointed at Ethan. The queen turned slowly and looked at him. Ethan forced himself to stand, despite the pain. He removed his helmet and met her gaze. "I found her alone," he said simply. "I couldn't leave her." The queen stared at him, searching his face, his broken armor, the burn marks where he had shielded her child. Around them, the war seemed to pause. Ethan did not know it yet, but at that moment, history had already changed. The battlefield did not end with silence. It ended with order. Alien royal guards moved fast, forming a wide protective circle around the queen and her daughter. Heavy shields rose, blocking fire from distant rebels. Medical units arrived, glowing tools scanning the area. The chaos that had ruled the streets moments ago pulled back, as if the war itself knew it was no longer allowed to touch them. Ethan stood still, his body shaking now that the danger had passed. Pain spread through his shoulder and side. His armor was cracked in several places, burned almost through. He kept his eyes on the queen, forcing himself to stay upright. The princess had not let go of him. Even in her mother's arms, one small glowing hand remained wrapped around Ethan's finger. The queen noticed. Her eyes narrowed slightly, not with anger but with sharp attention. She looked from her daughter to Ethan again, slowly, carefully, like a predator deciding whether something was a threat or something rare. A royal medic stepped forward. "Your Majesty, the human is injured. He should be restrained." The queen lifted one hand. "No," she said. The word carried weight. Everyone froze. She lowered her head and spoke softly to her daughter in their native tongue. The princess replied in a weak voice, still holding Ethan's hand. Her glow pulsed gently, brighter when she looked at him. The queen straightened. "He will not be restrained," she said. "He will be taken with us." Murmurs rippled through the guards. A human brought directly into royal custody. That had not happened in living memory. Ethan swallowed. "If I'm under arrest," he said carefully, "I understand." The queen's gaze returned to him. "You disobeyed orders," she said. "You entered a forbidden zone, you fought without command." "Yes," Ethan replied. "And yet," she continued, "you protected what was not yours. You shielded my child with your body." She stepped closer. Ethan felt the pressure of her presence, ancient and powerful. "You will come with us," she repeated. "Not as a prisoner, not as a guest, as an answer." Before Ethan could respond, pain finally won. His legs gave out. He did not hit the ground. A golden-armored guard caught him, holding him steady. Another medic moved in, scanning his wounds. "He will survive," the medic said. "Barely." The Queen turned and walked toward a massive transport ship descending through the smoke. The guards followed. Ethan was carried after them, the princess still refusing to let go of his hand. Inside the ship, the noise of battle faded. The walls were smooth and warm, glowing softly. Ethan was placed on a medical platform. Machines hummed as they worked on him, sealing burns and stopping internal bleeding. He drifted in and out of consciousness. Each time his eyes opened, he saw the same thing: the princess sitting beside him. She was smaller up close, fragile despite her royal blood. Her glow was softer now. She watched the machines with curiosity, then looked at Ethan's face whenever he stirred. At one point, she placed her small hand on his chest. The glow from her skin spread slightly, reacting to the rhythm of his heart. Ethan tried to smile. It came out weak. "You're safe," he whispered, not knowing if she understood. She tilted her head, then made a soft sound that almost sounded like a laugh. The ship moved. By the time Ethan fully woke, they were no longer in the city. Through the wide windows, he saw the stars. He tried to sit up. Pain flared, but less than before. "You should not move," a calm voice said. Ethan turned his head. The Queen stood nearby, her armor removed now, replaced with flowing dark robes marked with glowing royal symbols. She looked less like a warrior and more like a ruler carved from legend. "My daughter insisted you wake," she said. "She does not release you even in sleep." Ethan glanced down. The princess was asleep beside him, her hand still resting on his arm. "I didn't mean to cause trouble," Ethan said. The Queen studied him for a long moment. "Trouble follows truth," she replied. "Tell me, human soldier, why did you turn back?" Ethan took a breath. "Because she was alone." "That is not an answer," the Queen said. Ethan met her eyes. "Then it's the only one I have." The Queen did not react immediately. She moved closer, her presence heavy again. "You knew she was alien. You knew helping her would bring punishment. You knew your people would abandon you." "Yes." "And still you chose her." "Yes." The Queen's eyes softened just slightly. "Among my kind," she said, "a life debt is sacred, but such debts are only owed between kin." She gestured to Ethan. "You are not kin, and yet my child's life exists because of you." The princess stirred and opened her eyes. She looked at her mother, then at Ethan, then reached out again and gripped his sleeve. The Queen watched this, silent. "You will come to the palace," she said at last. "There others will judge you, some will fear you, some will hate you." "That's fine," Ethan said. "As long as she's safe." The Queen's gaze sharpened. "Be careful, human," she said. Such words carry power here. The palace was not what Ethan expected. It was not cold or sharp. It was alive. Tall halls curved like growing trees. Light flowed through the walls like water. Every step echoed with quiet energy. Guards lined the corridors, watching Ethan with unreadable expressions. Some looked curious. Others looked angry. The princess walked beside Ethan now, holding his hand as if it was the most natural thing in the world. Royal attendants tried to guide her away gently. She refused each time, clinging harder. "Let her," the Queen ordered. Whispers followed them as they entered the main council chamber. Alien nobles sat in high seats, their forms varied and imposing. The room fell silent as the Queen took her throne. Ethan stood alone at the center. The princess climbed onto the Queen's lap, then leaned sideways to keep holding Ethan's hand. The reaction was immediate. "This is unacceptable," one noble said. "A human in the royal chamber." "He is contaminated," another added. "Who knows what influence he has over the child?" Ethan said nothing. He stood straight, ignoring the pain, ignoring the fear. The Queen raised her hand. "You will speak when permitted," she said coldly. She turned to Ethan. "Human soldier Ethan Hale," she said. "You stand before the throne, tell them what you did." Ethan took a breath and spoke simply. He did not make himself a hero. He did not blame others. He told the truth, plain and clear. When he finished, the chamber was quiet. Then the arguments began. He disobeyed orders. He endangered the princess by carrying her through battle. He is only alive because our guards arrived." "Yes," the queen said, "and my daughter is only alive because he chose to act when no one else did." The princess lifted her head and made a soft sound, glowing brighter. "She has bonded," a noble said in shock. The queen's eyes narrowed. "A rare response," she agreed. "One formed under extreme fear." All eyes turned to Ethan. "Then the human is dangerous," someone said. "Remove him," the princess hissed sharply, pressing against her mother, her glow flaring. The queen stood. The room fell silent. "This council will not decide today," she said. "The human will remain under my protection." She looked down at Ethan. "You will stay," she said, "until I decide what your actions mean for my empire." Ethan bowed his head slightly. "I understand." As guards escorted him to his quarters, the princess walked with him until attendants gently carried her away. She looked back at him, eyes glowing softly. Ethan watched her until the doors closed. He did not know what judgment awaited him. But somewhere deep inside the palace, a queen was already questioning everything she thought she knew about humans. The days that followed were slow, heavy, and filled with eyes watching from every shadow. Ethan remained inside the palace, given a small but clean room near the inner gardens. It was not a prison, but it was not freedom either. Guards stood outside at all times. Some treated him with quiet respect. Others looked at him like a problem that had not yet been solved. His wounds healed faster than expected. Alien medical technology worked silently, repairing damage layer by layer. Still, his body ached, especially at night, when the memory of fire and falling stone returned in his dreams. Each morning, the same thing happened. The princess came to see him. She arrived with attendants and guards, but the moment she spotted Ethan, she ran to him, her small feet glowing against the polished floor. She always took his hand, always looked up at him with calm trust, as if the palace itself only made sense when he was there. At first, the attendants protested. Then the queen ordered them to stop. "She chooses," the queen said simply. Ethan did not know how to act around a royal child. He had no children of his own. He did not speak her language. Yet somehow they understood each other. He showed her simple things: how to fold a piece of cloth into shapes, how to tap softly on the window to feel its vibration, how to sit quietly and breathe when the world felt too loud. In return, the princess showed him the palace. She led him through glowing gardens where living plants floated gently in the air, through halls where the walls changed color with emotion, through quiet rooms where ancient stars were recorded as light and sound. Sometimes she would stop and press her forehead to his arm, glowing softly. The palace reacted to her moods. When she was calm, the light softened. When she laughed, it brightened. People noticed. Whispers grew. The council met in private again and again. "The human's presence is altering her development. He is an outsider. He is influencing the royal bond." The queen listened to all of it without speaking. She watched her daughter laugh for the first time since the attack. She watched her sleep peacefully when Ethan sat nearby. She remembered the moment she found her child alive in a battlefield, protected by a human body. And she waited. On the seventh day, the queen summoned Ethan. This time he was taken not to the council chamber but to a quiet room high above the city. One entire wall was transparent, showing the stars and the recovering world below. The queen stood alone. "Come closer," she said. Ethan obeyed. She did not sit on a throne now. There were no guards, no nobles, just a ruler and a soldier. "My empire is old," the queen said. "Older than your species' recorded history. We have survived by strength, by order, by control." She turned to face him. "You broke all three." Ethan did not reply. "You disobeyed command," she continued. "You acted without certainty. You chose emotion over survival." She stepped closer. "And yet my child lives." Ethan met her gaze. "I didn't think," he said. "I just acted." "That," the queen said, "is what frightens my council." She walked past him, looking out at the stars. Among my kind, children are guarded by law, by force, by bloodlines. We trust systems, not individuals. She turned back. You trusted yourself. Ethan nodded slowly. I need to understand something, the Queen said. If the roles were reversed, if a human child had been trapped in that ruin and my soldiers had been the ones retreating, would they have turned back? Ethan was quiet for a long moment. Some wouldn't, he said honestly. Some would. Humans aren't perfect. The Queen studied his face. But you would, she said. Yes. The Queen closed her eyes briefly. That is why this is difficult. Later that same day, the council gathered again. This time the chamber was full. Nobles, generals, scholars, and spiritual leaders filled the seats. The atmosphere was tense, charged. Ethan stood once more at the center. The princess sat beside the Queen, not on her lap this time, but on a small platform placed near the throne. Her hand rested on Ethan's sleeve. The Queen rose. Today, she said, we decide the meaning of a human choice. A noble stood. Your Majesty, this human is a risk. His influence on the princess is measurable. Her energy patterns change when he is near. Yes, the Queen replied. They stabilize. Another voice rose. Bonding with an outsider weakens royal purity. The princess looked up sharply, her glow darkening. Ethan felt it immediately. He knelt beside her without thinking, placing his hand gently over hers. It's okay, he said softly. The chamber reacted. Lights flickered. Energy rippled through the walls. Silence fell. The Queen raised her hand slowly. You see, she said, without force, without command, he calms her. She stepped down from the throne and walked the floor, her voice steady and strong. Our empire has faced threats we could not predict, enemies who do not fear our fleets, allies who do not trust our power. She stopped in front of Ethan. This human did not save my daughter because of law or reward or fear. She turned to the council. He saved her because she was alone. The room remained quiet, then a general spoke. What do you propose, Your Majesty? The Queen returned to her throne. I propose we stop underestimating humans. Murmurs spread like fire. They are fragile, someone said. They are divided. They are short-lived. Yes, the Queen replied. And yet, when faced with the choice to survive or to protect, this one chose to protect. She looked down at her daughter. My child will one day rule. She will face a galaxy that fears her power. Her gaze hardened. I want her to understand mercy before she learns dominance. The Queen lifted her hand. Ethan Hale will not be punished. Some nobles gasped. He will remain here, the Queen continued. Under my protection, under my observation, she paused, and under my daughter's trust. The princess glowed brightly, pressing closer to Ethan. The decision was made, but not everyone accepted it. That night, as Ethan walked alone through a quiet corridor, the lights dimmed suddenly. A cold feeling passed through the air. Ethan stopped. From the shadows, figures emerged, 3 of them, nobles, guards, not royal. Their armor was dark, unmarked. You should not be here, human, one said. Ethan's hand moved slowly toward his side. He had no weapon. I didn't choose this, Ethan replied. I just saved a child. That is exactly the problem, another said. They moved closer. Before Ethan could react, the air shimmered. Light exploded between them. The princess stood at the far end of the corridor, her glow blazing brighter than Ethan had ever seen. The walls responded, symbols flaring to life. The palace itself seemed to wake. Stop, she said, her voice small but powerful. The guards froze. Royal alarms screamed through the halls. The Queen arrived moments later, fury in her eyes. She took one look at the scene and understood everything. These actions, she said coldly, are treason. The guards were taken away. The Queen knelt in front of her daughter, holding her close. Then she looked at Ethan. You are no longer just a guest, she said. Ethan felt the weight of her words. You are now a matter of survival. As the palace settled back into silence, one truth became clear. Saving the princess had not ended the danger. It had only begun to change the future of an empire. The palace did not sleep after that night. Security doubled. Royal seals glowed brighter along the halls. Guards loyal only to the Queen replaced many others. The attack on Ethan was never spoken of in public, but everyone felt the shift. Something fragile had been crossed. Something dangerous had been revealed. Ethan felt it too. He was moved to new quarters closer to the Queen's chambers, not locked, not guarded heavily, but watched with care, not because he was feared, but because he mattered now. That knowledge sat heavy on his chest. The princess stayed close to him more than ever. She followed him through the gardens, through learning halls, through quiet rooms where the palace sang softly in tones too deep to hear but easy to feel. When she slept better when he was near. When nightmares came, she reached for him without opening her eyes. The Queen observed all of it. She had ruled for decades. She had crushed rebellions, ended wars, commanded fleets that darkened stars. But she had never faced a question like this. What was a human? Her scholars brought reports. Humans were physically weaker, short-lived. Emotion-driven, divided by culture and belief. Their history was full of conflict. And yet one human had walked into fire for a child that was not his. The Queen summoned her inner council in a sealed chamber, far from listening walls. "Speak freely," she said. A general leaned forward. "The human's presence has already prevented unrest among certain factions. Others see him as a threat." "A symbol," another added, "of weakness." The Queen nodded. "Symbols matter," a scholar spoke next. "Your Majesty, we have studied the bonding event. It is rare but not harmful. The princess does not see the human as authority. She sees him as safety." Silence followed. "That may be more powerful than authority," the Queen said quietly. Another voice, sharp and cold, broke in. "Humans are unpredictable. Today he saves a child. Tomorrow he could betray us." The Queen's eyes hardened. "Then we judge him by his actions, as we expect to be judged ourselves." She stood. "There is a greater danger," she said, "not the human, but those who fear change so deeply they are willing to spill royal blood." The council understood. The attack had been a warning. That same day, unrest spread beyond the palace. Rumors leaked. A human soldier had saved the princess. The Queen protected him. Some saw hope. Others saw insult. In distant sectors, rival powers watched closely. A single human had shifted the balance. Ethan was called to the Queen again, this time with the princess present. They stood in a wide chamber filled with floating light shards that displayed stars and systems. The Queen gestured and the galaxy unfolded around them. "Look," she said. Ethan saw borders, fleets, alliances, lines of tension glowing faintly. "My empire is strong," the Queen said, "but strength invites challenge. There are those who would test us now, believing we hesitate." She turned to Ethan. "You did not ask for this," she said, "but you are part of it." Ethan nodded. "I just want her safe." The princess squeezed his hand, glowing softly. "That," the Queen said, "is why I trust you." She took a breath. "I will offer you a choice." Ethan looked up, surprised. "You may return to your people," she said, "with honor, with protection. This story can end here." Ethan looked at the princess, at the way she leaned into him, calm and unafraid. "And the other choice?" he asked. "You stay," the Queen said, "not as a prisoner, not as a soldier, but as something new." The room grew quiet. "You would stand as a living bridge," she continued, "between my daughter and a galaxy that fears her, between my empire and humanity." Ethan felt the weight of it press down on him. "I'm just one man," he said. "So was I once," the Queen replied. Ethan did not answer right away. That night the princess had another nightmare. She woke crying, her glow flashing wildly, the palace reacting in waves. Ethan rushed to her side, kneeling, holding her small hands. "It's okay," he said softly. "I'm here." Her breathing slowed. The light softened. The palace calmed. The Queen watched from the doorway. She saw not a human soldier. She saw a guardian. The next day the challenge came. A foreign envoy arrived without warning, representatives from a rival empire. Their ships hovered at the edge of the system, their message clear. They demanded proof of strength. They demanded to see the human. The council was divided. Some urged refusal, others urged a show of force. The queen chose a third path. She allowed the meeting. The chamber was grand and open, filled with light. The princess sat beside the queen. Ethan stood behind her, not armed, not armored. The rival envoy spoke with arrogance. "We hear your empire bends to humans now." The queen did not react. "We hear your heir is protected by a weak species," the envoy continued. "We wish to see this weakness for ourselves." The princess stiffened. Ethan felt it and placed a calming hand near her, not touching, just present. The envoy noticed. "So this is the human," they sneered. "Soft, unimpressive." Ethan said nothing. The queen finally spoke. "This human walked into death without promise of reward." The envoy laughed. "A foolish trait." "Perhaps," the queen said, "but it is a trait my enemies underestimate." She turned to Ethan. "Show them," she said gently. Ethan understood. He stepped forward and knelt before the princess. He spoke simply, clearly. "I will protect her," he said. "No matter the cost." There was no threat in his voice, no challenge, only truth. The princess reached out and placed her hand on his head. The chamber reacted violently. Light surged. Energy patterns flared. The palace itself responded to the bond, ancient systems awakening. Defensive grids aligned. Power surged through the throne. The envoys staggered back, stunned. "This bond," a scholar whispered, "it amplifies royal authority." The queen rose, her presence now overwhelming. "This is not weakness," she said. "This is trust." The envoys retreated soon after. Word spread quickly across the stars. Humans were no longer unseen. That evening the queen called Ethan privately. "You have your answer," she said. Ethan looked at the princess, asleep in the next room, glowing softly. "I'll stay," he said. The queen nodded. "Then the reward for your choice will be announced soon," she said. Ethan did not ask what it was. Outside the palace, ships moved. Alliances shifted. History leaned forward. And at the center of it all stood a human who had once only wanted to save a child, and now carried the weight of an empire's future. Years passed, yet the memory of that day on Virlia never faded for Ethan Hale. The battlefield, the cry of the small alien child, the chaos and fire, all remained vivid in his mind. He had been changed by that choice, and so had the galaxy. Humans were no longer just soldiers or hired muscle. They were respected, watched carefully by powers that had once dismissed them. All because one human had acted when no one else would. Ethan had remained at the queen's side, earning a role no human had ever held. He was now the royal guardian, a position that existed outside law and rank. It was a unique honor, given only to those who had proven themselves beyond duty by heart. His task was not to command armies or wield weapons alone. It was to protect the princess, to teach her humanity, and to act as a bridge between Earth and Virlia. The princess, who had once been tiny and terrified, grew strong and brilliant under their combined care. She trusted him completely, leaning on him when the world was harsh, listening when she needed guidance, learning from him not just about strategy and survival, but about mercy, compassion, and courage. Humans were studying her, as were alien scholars. Her glow, her powers, her very essence, intertwined now with Ethan's presence, was producing new patterns in royal energy systems. The queen often watched them together, quietly noting that one human had done what centuries of elite soldiers could not. He had not only saved a life, he had reshaped an entire empire. Despite all this, Ethan remained humble. He never took credit, never demanded recognition. To him, the greatest victory was simple. She was safe, she was happy, and she could grow without fear. One day, while walking through the palace gardens, the princess tugged on his sleeve. The air shimmered faintly around her as she ran ahead to a pond that reflected the twin suns of the planet. Ethan followed, carrying a simple satchel of supplies she had asked him to bring. "Watch," she called, releasing a burst of her glow into the water. The pond lit up in ripples of bright blue and soft gold, reflecting her joy. Ethan smiled. "You're getting stronger every day." The princess turned, her eyes glowing, and pressed her small hand to his arm. "I learned from you," she said. "You make me brave." He knelt beside her, feeling the warmth of her light. "You've always been brave," he said. "I just helped you see it." The queen appeared quietly behind them, her presence commanding even without words. She observed silently as Ethan helped the princess adjust a small floating device she was experimenting with, laughing when it bounced gently in the air. "This human," she said, her voice carrying over the soft rustle of the gardens, "has done more than I ever expected. He has not only saved my child but ensured that my empire is safer because of his choices." Ethan straightened, feeling the weight of her words. He looked at the princess, then back at the queen. "I only did what anyone would do," he said. "Not anyone," the queen replied, her eyes piercing yet calm. "Not anyone would act without thought for themselves, without care for reward, when the rest of the world had abandoned her." The princess glowed brighter as if agreeing. "He stayed," she said softly. "Yes," the queen nodded. "He stayed, and now, because of him, humanity has a place in this galaxy it never imagined." The human presence had already shifted alliances. Earth was now viewed with respect by several neighboring sectors. Treaties had been signed, trade agreements established, and warnings of aggression considered more seriously than ever before. A single human soldier's choice had created ripples that altered galactic politics. Ethan understood that his actions, his decision to save one small life, had grown into something larger than himself. But he did not feel proud or powerful. He felt responsible. He felt humble. Years later, the princess grew into a confident young leader, poised to inherit her mother's throne. Her light had grown more stable and powerful, her command over her abilities strengthened by discipline, training, and the constant guidance of Ethan Hale. She had learned not only strategy and diplomacy, but also patience, empathy, and courage. Ethan remained her protector, advisor, and friend, walking quietly at her side even as she took on challenges that dwarfed anything humans had ever faced. She often reminded him that humans saw the galaxy differently than aliens did, less by power, more by heart, choice, and courage. She trusted him not because he was strong, but because he chose rightly when no one else would. One evening, as twin suns dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in gold and violet, Ethan and the princess stood on a balcony overlooking the city. The streets were quiet now, the fires of rebellion long extinguished. Ships moved silently in orbit, fleets that once threatened Virelia now allies or at least neutral. "You stayed," the princess said softly, her hand brushing against his arm, "even when it was dangerous, even when no one told you to." "I promised I would," Ethan replied. "I never thought about reward." "You didn't think," she said, smiling faintly, "and yet the galaxy remembered you anyway." A gentle breeze passed, carrying the scent of alien flowers and the soft hum of distant energy. Ethan realized how far they had come. He remembered the first moment he had lifted the small child from the rubble, the terror in her eyes, the explosions around them, the fire and smoke. And now, here they were, peaceful, calm, safe. The queen approached, her robes flowing in the evening light. She did not speak at first. She simply looked at Ethan, the princess, and the galaxy beyond. Then she spoke, quietly but firmly. "You have earned a reward that no human could expect," she said. "Earth itself will be protected. Your people will no longer be overlooked. And you, Ethan Hale, will forever be remembered in my empire as one who changed history through courage and choice." Ethan felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He had done nothing extraordinary in his mind. He had simply saved a child. And yet here he was, standing at the center of a galaxy, having changed the course of history. He knelt before the queen instinctively, though no one had ordered him. "Thank you," he said, his voice steady. "You do not need thanks," she replied. "Your actions are their own reward, and your presence will shape the future in ways you cannot yet imagine." The princess laughed softly and tugged at his sleeve. "Come on," she said, glowing faintly. "Let's go see the city." Ethan stood, smiling faintly. For a long moment, he looked at the twin suns dipping below the horizon. Then he turned, following the princess, ready to continue walking the path he had chosen years ago. Together they walked through the palace gardens, through halls that sang with light, and into a future that stretched farther than he had ever dreamed. The galaxy was vast, unpredictable, and sometimes dangerous. But for the first time, Ethan Hale knew one truth clearly. Humans had heart, courage, and choice, and that was more powerful than any fleet, any weapon, any empire. And so the story of a single human soldier who had saved a small alien girl spread across stars, whispered in councils, recorded in archives, and celebrated quietly in hearts. He did not seek fame, he did not seek glory, he only acted. And that action, simple yet profound, reshaped the fate of worlds. The princess grew into a wise and powerful ruler, guided by his lessons and her own light. The queen continued to lead her empire with strength and vision, knowing that humanity had earned a permanent place among the stars. And Ethan, he continued to stand beside them, always ready, always vigilant, always a human who chose the right path when the galaxy's eyes were on nothing but war. In the end, one choice, a single act of courage and mercy, had ensured that the galaxy would remember not power or domination, but the simple, unstoppable truth. Humanity could shine brighter than the stars themselves when it chose to care. The twin suns disappeared beneath the horizon, the palace glowed softly in the darkness, and the human soldier smiled, knowing that he had done the right thing. And sometimes that was reward enough. Years would pass, stories would spread, empires would rise and fall. But the legend of Ethan Hale, the human who saved the alien princess, would endure forever, a reminder that one choice, one act of courage could change the course of the galaxy. The princess squeezed his hand, her glow steady and warm. "You saved me," she whispered. "No," Ethan said, smiling faintly. "We saved each other." And for the first time in a long while, he felt at home in a galaxy that had once seemed too vast and too dangerous. The galaxy had changed, and so had humanity, and the story was far from over.